Hello, St. Catherine's guitar students. Here we are, lesson 4. Before I start into the lesson, I want to just show real quick the classical guitar strap. I sent some of those over for the nylon string guitars. The way to use these, you put your head through it, the loop there, and then, if you haven't figured this out already, then the little clip here goes under, the strap goes under between the two bouts of the guitar, lower bouts, and then you clip that into the sound hole, and then it holds the guitar that way. Now, the one warning you have to have is you have to keep the right arm on the guitar. If you can let go of the left hand, but if your right forearm releases, the guitar is going to fall down. So, unlike the steel string guitars, on the steel string guitars, you have a button here and a button back here. You hook the guitar strap on those, and then you just have a loop, and you can let go of both hands with that kind. So, okay. So, last week we learned in the lesson 3, we learned the thumb pluck and planting to get our right hand accustomed to placing it on the strings, so that our third finger's always on the first string, second finger's on the second string, and first finger's on the third string. And remember, the thumb plays fourth, fifth, or sixth string. So, and we practiced a thumb, pluck, and then we planted the hand back down in position, thumb, pluck, and planted. And so if you've been doing that since the last lesson, hopefully your hand's finding its way to the correct strings, and you can do it without the plant. So you just do thumb, pluck, and I plant the same time I do my thumb, pluck, thumb, pluck, plant and pluck together, like that. So I get rid of the plant stage. The planting stage is just a learning tool, but you don't really, once you know where the strings are, you don't need to plant. You automatically do it without even thinking about it. Now, and then you can do, well, so and you can also do this right hand, all this right hand work, you can do without using your left hand playing chords. You can play chords if you want to see what they sound like, but you don't have to. You can rest your fingertips if your hands are getting sore. Now, so today we're going to learn a finger picking technique. So we're going to plant our hand there, and then we're going to do thumb, then we do the first finger alone, pluck your third finger, and then, I'm sorry, first finger on the third string, then your second finger, and then your first finger. And then you plant your hand back again, thumb, 1, first finger, 2, second finger, 3, third finger. Plant, thumb, 1, 2, 3, thumb, 1, 2, 3. And you want to work on that. You get that to where you can play it a little faster. Also practice changing strings with the thumb. So try it with the thumb on the 5th string. Thumb, 1, 2, 3, thumb, 1, 2, 3. Remember to keep the back of the hand, this part of the hand, stable. It's not, you don't want it bouncing off the guitar. When you're plucking, your finger goes through the string. You don't pluck out like this. You don't pluck out like that. If your hand's bouncing like that, it makes it real hard for your fingers to know where to go, because your hand's bouncing away from the guitar. So if the back of this hand, if your hand is a stable platform that the fingers can move from, then it's a lot easier for them to always find the string that they're looking for. So So you can do this exercise with any string. I would suggest eventually doing it like 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. So like thumb, 1, 2, 3, 5th string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6th string, back to the 5th, and 4th. That way you get used to any string, because we're going to use some different ones today. Okay. So that's the first finger picking pattern that you're learning. It's a thumb 1, 2, 3 finger picking pattern. Now we're going to apply that to Father, I Adore You, the song that we learned last week. Also, I don't know if I've ever told you all that I have something called Tourette syndrome. So it's a nervous condition that's hereditary. It's in my, it's not anything I caught or can pass on to anybody. But I have some nervous tics, and they're in my face, clearing my throat sometimes. That's one of my tics. Kind of blowing air out. If you hear that sort of sound, that's, or blowing out my mouth and catching it on my hands, those are just little quirks that I do. I'm fine. I've been doing these things all my life since I was about 5 years old. So I just wanted to let you know that I have some, if you see my face sometimes in my mouth, I have some things like that. In my eyes, I squint my eyes and I make little bunny noses, rabbit noses. So I'm a little strange kind of a guy here, but I can still teach guitar. So let's go to Father, I Adore You. Now, each chord, it changes every measure in each line. Though at the end, so you have one measure, and when I say measure, I'm talking about the distance between two of these vertical upright lines in the music staff there. Music's written with 5 horizontal lines that the notes are placed on, and then it's broken up with these vertical lines. And between each one of the space in between each one of these vertical lines is called a measure, or a bar, sometimes just bar, B-A-R. And those are called bar lines, those vertical lines. In musical jargon or terminology, they're called bar lines. So if you look at the very start of the piece, the far left of the first line there, you'll see what's a little squiggly thing. That's called the treble clef. Don't worry about that. Then you see some little, look like number hashtags. That's another thing that you don't have to worry about yet today. Then you have 2 numbers, a 2 and a 4, 2, 4. That is, in music terminology, that says it's 2/4 time. What that means is, in each one of the measures, the space between each bar line, there are 2 beats. In music, we keep time with beats, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. Tap, you know, it's got a regular beat. And this one, there's 2 beats between each measure, and the bottom note, the 4, tells you that it's the quarter note that gets a beat. So each quarter note is valued at 1 beat of time. So if I'm looking at this song and trying to add things up, let's look at the first measure, Father. That's actually what's called, the note there is a half note. It's got a stem, a vertical little stem, and it's got a circle. And in this case, the circle is hollow. It's not filled in. And so that's a half note. That equals 2 quarter notes in time, so that's worth 2 beats. Now you look over in the next measure, over the second half of Father, over there, you see a quarter note. That's got a solid dot and a stem. So that's worth 1 beat in this key signature here. It's going to get 1 beat. And then over the rest of that measure, it looks like 2 quarter notes, but they're tied together with a bar on top. that means it changes their value to what's called an eighth note, which is half as long as a quarter note. So an eighth note it takes 2 eighth notes to equal a quarter note, takes 2 quarter notes to equal a half note, just like working with fractions in elementary school math. So in that second measure, you have 1 beat over there, and then each one of those is a half beat. So 2 half beats equal 1, so I have 1 and 1 is 2, so I still have 2 beats. The next 2 measures are both half notes, so they each get 2 beats. Now down to the second line, I've got 2 quarter notes. So each one gets a beat, so that's 2 beats. So you can look through that whole song and you'll see every measure, the space between each 2 bars has 2 beats. So, and if we do this finger picking pattern, we're going to finger pick the thumb, 1, 2, 3. Each one of those gets an eighth note. So it takes 4 of those, 4 eighth notes, to equal 2 beats. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. We count out eighth notes with an and. So if I was to count this song out, I would go 1, 1, 2, and 1, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 1. Notice when I'm playing singing a quarter note, or I mean a half note, I don't count out 2 because I'm holding the note holds through the 2. Anyway, that's a little music theory lesson for you. And that's enough for today. So we're going to do a thumb 1, 2, 3 on each measure in this song. And let me blow my nose here. The placement of the thumb, the string that the thumb's on, is going to depend on what chord we're playing. So if we're on the D chord, we're going to play the 4th string. On the E minor chord, we're going to play the 6th string. And on the A7 chord, we're going to play the 5th string. And I learned that back in my chord chart because that's the string that has the star over it. The star is the root. So it would sound like this. Just playing the guitar on a D with the 4th, thumb, 1, 2, 3. Now the E minor with the thumb on the 6th. Now the A7 with the thumb on the 5th. And back to the D, thumb on the 4th. And the same thing each line. Each line's a different. So the next line, you know where it says lay my life? Now there's no chord written over the word lay. But so when there's no chord written on a measure, that means the previous chord continues through that measure. So I look back up and I see that the last chord in the first line was a D. So that since there's no chord written, I just stay on the D. So starting again, D, E minor, da, and then A7, back to D. Again a D, 4th string thumb, D, E minor with a 6th string thumb, and then A7 with a 5th string, and D, 4th string. And so the song would sound like this. I'm going to slow it down a little bit because you want to practice slow and accurate. I don't know if I've said this before, but you'll hear me say this again. The best advice I ever got from any of my guitar teachers was if you practice fast and sloppy, you'll end up a fast and sloppy guitar player. So we want to slow it down to where we can play accurate and clean. Ready? Play. Father, I adore you. Lay my life before you. How I love that was too fast, slow it down, but keep it even. You can, whatever you need to where your guitar playing is clean and accurate. Eventually, when you get this ready to perform at a worship service, it would be about this tempo. Father, I adore you. Lay my life before you. How I love you. Okay, now let's look at His Name is Jesus. Find that one. We're going to learn a new chord today. We're going to learn the chord E or E major. We learned an E minor last lesson in the Father I Adore You. That it's got an E and then a little small case M after it. But if it's just an E major chord, there's just a capital E over it. So if we look on our chord chart, on the first page of the chord chart, you'll see the very second chord there, and that top line of chords is an E. And it's fingered like this. The first finger is on the first fret of the third string. Second finger is on the second fret of the fifth string, and your third finger tucks in right behind, right next to that on the second fret of the third string. So you need 3 fingers to play this chord. That's what it should sound like. And if it doesn't sound like that, if you're getting a buzz there, it could be because maybe this finger's laying over here. Another thing is on where your thumb is on the guitar, on the left hand here. It's really a common tendency for beginners to want to grab around the neck on their chord. So like on a D chord, they're like this, and their hand right up here is locked into the neck. That's not a good habit. You want this thumb to scoot back and be just barely to where it maybe pokes over the neck, the edge of the neck, where I can just barely see it here. You see in the big picture, now it's hidden. Now in classical guitar, you're taught to keep your thumb behind the neck, but the goal either way is to have have some space here. You can see right in here. See how I'm not up tight against the neck? I've got some air there. I can put a finger through that if I need to. So that's a good way that's far better than gripping around like this. And you'll see why when we get to an F chord eventually, and some finger pickings. Well, we may get there. Anyway, so just a suggestion, when you're playing this E chord, try and keep your thumb so it's not all the way around and you're not grabbing the guitar like you're holding on to an axe handle or something like that. So the E chord. So in this song, His Name is Jesus, it only has 2 chords. This is a song I wrote. I wrote it for guitar students, beginning guitar students, to have an easy song they could sing. So, and to teach the E chord. So going from an E to a D is pretty easy. I'm gonna lift the second and third fingers up, slide, relax my first finger a little bit, take the pressure off, but keep it on the string. Slide it up 1 fret, and then put my second and third fingers back down. And there's my D chord. When I go back to my E, lift up the second, third fingers, slide the first finger down, and put the second fingers and third finger where they go on the E chord, on the 5th and 4th strings. Remember, on a D chord, you just strum 5 strings. On an E chord, you strum all 6. And if you're getting a buzz, remember, there's only about 4 ways you can get a buzz. One is laying this finger over. Here, see my third finger, I'm laying it down and it's touching the 3rd string. Or I could lay my first finger over and deaden the 2nd string. So the way to fix that is to bring the finger so it's more perpendicular to the guitar neck. Have it straight up. Another thing I could do maybe is, I'm not placing my 2nd finger very accurate and it's touching the bass string, touching the E string here. You see how I'm touching that? And if I bring that away from there, so you can deaden. That's one of the main ways that buzzes will happen, is deadening it with another finger. Another way is I can be too far up. I can be on top of the fret with my finger. Here, like my 3rd finger is on top of the fret. That will mute the sound. So I got to be behind. I want my fingers to be behind the fret, but as close to the fret as possible. Because if they're too far back, I can also get a buzz. Because the string's bouncing up and down on this fret. So I want to be close to the fret, but not on top of it. And the last way is simply, I'm not pushing down hard enough. I can have my fingers in the right place, but unless I push down hard on the strings, they're not going to sound clear. And you will learn over time how much pressure it takes to get a good sound, and only give it that much pressure. You don't want to use too much pressure or your hands will hurt more than they need to. And eventually you'll get these little lines like you see on my fingertips there. Those are called calluses. Now, I can play guitar for hours without pain, but I've been at this a long time. It won't take you 50 years to get calluses, but it will take you some months before your fingers stop hurting a little bit. Okay, so the E chord. The whole world, and then we go to a D, changing back to E. Kingdom is D, growing around us. That's how the song goes. One thing we can do here, we can make it more interesting by adding a strum on the right hand. And this, notice this is the time, the key signature here in the upper left corner of the sheet music. There's a 3/4. That means there's 3 beats to the measure, the space between the vertical lines, and it's the quarter note again that gets the beat. So if you look at that first full measure, whole world is, there's 3 quarter notes. That makes 3 beats. What's going on there at the very start of the song, though, over the word the? That's called a pickup. That's a partial beat. And sometimes at the start of songs, they don't always start. Now, this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. They don't always start on 1. They might pick up before. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it might be to 1, 2, 3, a 1, 2, you know. So in this case, it's got a pickup. It comes in early. So that only has 1 beat in that measure. But all the rest of the measures should have 3 beats until you get to the very last measure. Look at the end of the piece there. There's only 2 beats. The reason there's 2 beats is because you go from there back to the start and you get that pickup. So at the very bottom of that where it says you go to verses, you have a quarter note and a squiggly line kind of thing. That's a quarter note rest. That means silence when there's a rest. So quarter note and a rest, that's 2 beats, and then the pickup gives you your 3rd beat. Okay. So this strum, we're going to do it goes 1, 2, and 3, and. So it's a quarter note and then 2 eighth notes, or 4 eighth notes. Down, up, down, up. And we can count this by going down, down, up, down, up. That first down, I'm coming up and I'm not brushing the guitar. I could do, but that sounds kind of boring. So I 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3, and. But it's real important to get this arm going up is just like a pendulum. It's steady, or like a metronome. Click, click. You don't want to go down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up. You don't want any jerkiness in there. Just let this arm rock from the elbow back and forth. It's like you're keeping time with your arm, with your forearm. So we put that strum to it, and it sounds like this. The whole world is de-changing. I missed my D chord, believe it or not. Let's try it again. Ready, go. The whole world is changing. The kingdom is growing around us. We stay on the E. The darkness, now to a D, is fading. Back to E. Here comes the light of the world. Stay on the D, or E, I mean. Now we go to D. His name is Jesus. The E there. Now to D. He is the, back to E, Lord. To D. When you get that strum down, it can go a little faster. If you ever use this song at church, it should go about this tempo. We'll do verse 2. The long night is over and darkness is running for shelter. Out on the horizon is risen the bright morning star. His name is Jesus. He is the Lord. Hallelujah. So that's a song you can add to your repertoire or your list of songs that you're learning.